we don't really at the end of the day, it's like we don't want there to be a God, um, because if there is a God, then I can't objectify women and you know
Right.
increase my as the kids say these days body count or whatever stupid crap they say. All right, welcome back to Campfire Apologetics, where I help equip the everyday Christian with tools to defend their faith in an increasingly hostile culture. I'm Mark Hudson, and today I am joined by Luke from Voice of Reasons with an S on the end of that, because if you look up Voice of Reason, you
Not me.
will get a Catholic apologist who sounds a lot like Rocky Balboa, and that is not the same guy at all. So, but yeah, Voice of Reasons with an S. This is Luke, and I'll turn it over to you, Luke. You can give us a little more information on who you are and what you do, and why your channel exists and all that good stuff.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Mark. Sorry it took so long to coordinate this.
No,
I'm
you're fine,
terrible
man.
at managing my life and this business. So, anyways, my name's Luke. I go by VOR. It was Voice of Reasons official. The Catholic guy you're talking about came after us, and my
Okay.
wife just sure took this. We'd already had some success on TikTok, but anyway, so VOR. It actually started off. The atheists would troll me because I didn't like when people called me Vor. And so it was an atheist troll, and now it's stuck. So I'm actually better known as Vor, which is kind of funny. But anyways,
Kind of did what the Puritans did and just ran with the name.
What's funny is in Russian, it's like a really high compliment for people in basically organized crime. The Vor is like the secret, like stealth, trustworthy guy in organized crime. So considering what we really do is attack the official narrative, and we're in this kind of it's a little bit of a covert Star Warsian rebel, a force
It
attack
works.
on the empire. Yeah, it's fine. It's like we're like undercover. So, but anyways, yeah, we
Nice.
we focus primarily on TikTok. Everybody said you have to build a YouTube channel, but TikTok is unlike anything that's ever happened in the history of the world as far as information interchange. And it's kind of street preaching on just an unbelievable global level. The live show that we really focus on, where we debate your lay atheist, your scientists, people who believe in the Big Bang and evolution. We debate for hours and hours and hours every week, and we've reached hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people where you have a background that basically says the Big Bang Theory is wrong, evolution is wrong, the Bible is true. Your atheist comes in triggered and starts as a keyboard warrior, and then comes and engages with me, and we correct them on their religion of naturalism,
Right.
and that their story, the Big Bang Theory and Darwinian evolution, is just a creation myth. It's a modern day creation myth that was originally created to get people to disbelieve in the Bible. The actors that really pushed this, Thomas Huxley, we'll talk about in a minute, Ernst Haeckel, these guys, they wanted to take over what people thought about reality and basically create a scientific technocracy. In order to do this, they had to have a version of how we got here, which didn't involve the God of the Bible or was antithetical to him. So anyways, the VOR, we make short form content. We have about 35 million views in the short form content. Evidence in favor of the flood, Adam and Eve, young Earth. We've done the soft tissues and dinosaur bones. We just kind of cover whatever is either new or, whatever pieces of information scientifically validate scripture in the short form content. And then we do the debates. And it's been amazing. We've done it for almost 4 years now, 3.5 years full time. And it's been amazing. It's a very niche thing, but specific to TikTok, it's been a really successful ministry. So God is good.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. It makes me think, because I've been trying to tackle all of these different social media platforms, like Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and Twitter or X or whatever. And now there's Threads and there's all these other things. And I've noticed that my content, as far as all of those platforms go, I definitely get way more traffic on TikTok than I really do anywhere else. YouTube as well, but I'm still fairly new to this. But yeah, I think I need to focus on maybe just one or two of those instead of trying to be on all of them. But
Yeah, they've done really a real bang up job in making it hard to succeed across platforms. They don't want you to make this video here for YouTube and then cut it and put it on TikTok and have it succeed there. They want you to
yeah,
make TikTok specific content and YouTube
yeah,
specific content. And whether it's horizontal versus landscape,
yep,
vertical versus landscape, whatever. I think that was redundant. And so that's what we did. We chose, against everybody's best advisement, we chose to really focus on TikTok because the point of what we're doing is to defend our creator in what I call the information war. Actually, what Alex Jones originally called the information war,
right,
but the battle
yeah,
for the hearts and
yeah,
minds of men. And so, YouTube is can be a feedback loop. The way that you search content on YouTube is you go, I want to know about homesteading. I want to know about contract work. I want to know
yep,
about young earth creation. You find a content creator that aligns with your philosophy. And if he, does the thing you want, he or she, then you subscribe and you end up in a feedback loop, confirming your bias. TikTok is the way the algorithm works. If an atheist engages with one of my videos and goes, you believe in the flood, you believe in fairy tales, you're the stupidest guy in the internet, and he hits send, the algorithm tells his other atheist friends that, homeboy is engaging with this video.
uh-huh,
You think like him, you might engage. And then here comes the whole atheist army. And so
okay,
you get to put these 1 and 2 minute scientific presentations in front of sometimes tens of thousands of atheists. It's like force them to, see this content. You don't get that on YouTube. And then this has been a really weird thing that's happened. You get guys like Dr. Blitz or Dan McClellan. They make a video being critical of my video, a debunking video, and they put it on their channel and it gets hundreds of thousands or millions of views and it gets to all of their atheists. So anyways, it's just like, it's the
yeah.
opposite of a feedback loop. It's like a street fight. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful. I did not know that that's how that worked, and that makes so much more sense now because I recently did videos dealing with Mormonism and then another one dealing with Jehovah's Witnessism, and I put up these little short clips.
Mhm.
And maybe I should put up longer clips so there's a little more context. But I put up these little clips, and it's like the only people that are commenting and interacting are Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, where's all my homeboys at defending me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in here like just alone,
It,
battling poor theology basically. But
yeah. It's very
essentially,
much like Jedi against the stormtroopers. It's really
yeah,
wild.
man.
And so,
Athanasius against the world. It's
it is. So it's like you got to have thick skin and we get, it's a bloodbath. And a lot of times, spiritually, emotionally, we get the things that have happened. I mean, for example, somebody signed me up by name and address to the Satanic Church
oh my word.
and messaged me and said, expect mail or whatever. We've had death threats. We've had our accounts shut down. It's so I say it's like a street fight. The TikTok game is not YouTube. It's very hostile, but it's God. I believe that God built me with my life experiences to reach the atheist. I love Christians. I'm not interested in the theology off. I'm not interested in seeming
right.
less of a sinner or more holy or more right. I'm saved by grace. Jesus is the doctor. I want to get people to the doctor. And so when you're in there and you're fighting these, not fighting, but when you're engaging with these atheists, there's a lot of them who just go, I hate you. I want you dead. People say, a guy the other day on my live show said I should be drawn and quartered for questioning the Big Bang Theory. It's wild.
Oh, holy crap.
But then I get a message. Hey, I saw you on Dr. Blitz's live. I knew who was telling the truth in that. I saw you on this guy's live. I've got some questions. There's people out there that sure they're in their atheist feedback loop, but then the Holy Spirit convicts them or some part of this information really strikes them and they message me. And the amount of people from the far other side that have reached out to me and even said things like, I don't agree with you, but I appreciate how you're doing this. You've made me think, I've had atheists who I engaged with very seriously who come back to me a year later and go, look, I'm really into entertaining Christianity. And you're the first person I thought of. So, may God bless what we're doing. And it's, what's interesting is we're edgy. I'm a Christian who has no problem using the S word or the F word. I'm not worried about cussing, because I think the Bible's talking about don't swear, which is don't create an oath, and don't curse people, which is to say, I curse you with boils or whatever. And
Mm,
so I'm this edgy Christian who a lot of Christians go, he's not Christian enough for me. And as the Christians say, he's not
yeah.
Christian enough for me, the atheist goes, hey, I can relate with that person. And so
Yeah.
it's a very interesting thing that God has done, but I love it. I was built for it, and I pray that he continues it if it's his will. But it's yeah, if you haven't seen it on TikTok, it's a thing. It's a
Oh
needed
yeah.
thing. And there's also these atheists, Deconstruction Zone, Justin, Ian, again, Blitz, Mezzo. They have 500-600 atheists in their room, and they just bully every Christian, just gaslight, bully. And I'll have my moderators or somebody reach out to me and go, please go debate this person. And I go in and debate and have a good showing. And in a sense, like, they call me in because they're getting bullied on the playground, and they have me bully the bullies. And it's a really
Yeah.
cool thing. There's a joke about setting the bat signal up and to get VOR in there. And it's just, your standard Christian can't engage with these topics because the atheists are smart and they have done their research. A lot of them are university trained. A lot of
Yeah.
them have learned under anti-theist scientists. They're much more equipped for the battle than your standard Christian. So
Yeah.
we aim to be able to defend the faith, like what you do on the streets of TikTok.
Yeah, man. Amen. That's awesome. And it's a good segue too, because you talked about the one atheist saying that you should be drawn and quartered. And um, uh, I mean, I can't help but think that that's consistent with evolution and atheism. I mean, if you're just stardust, then why would it matter if you're drawn and quartered? And who cares, So,
Right.
and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about is evolution and how we came to this place in history, and why do we believe in evolution, or why would somebody believe in evolution? What, and where did this come from? Where did this thought come from? Um, and I have notes as well as you do. I'll go ahead and I'll pull this up here because you shared your screen. So I'll pull up what you're going to be going over, and yeah, we can get into it, wherever you want to start with that, and I'll
Well,
interject and we can talk.
we're gonna start from the beginning. This is the
Ah,
Bible, Genesis 1. So what we're gonna do really quickly, we're gonna cover. I don't know if really quickly. I should probably never say really quickly with any of my monologues, but what I'm
yeah,
gonna attempt to cover in a somewhat acceptable time frame is what the Bible says about creation versus what we were taught about creation, and
yep,
then we're gonna discuss how this happened, and then I'm going to explain kind of philosophically how this history, how this agenda has affected what we all as believers think about the Bible, think about our place on the earth, our place having been made in the image of the living God, and how we have to try to go, do we trust the Bible or do we trust science? And we know we want to trust science, but we want to believe the Bible, and we're all put in this disparity, this juxtaposition. So,
yeah,
we're going to start Genesis 1. And if you research this in Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim v'haaretz, those 7 words, the layers of prophecy and meaning in that are wild. For example, it starts Bereshit, which is Bet Resh Shin, Bet Resh Aleph Shin, which is Bar Aleph. Bar is son, Aleph is the father. The Bible starts with the son of the father. That's the first 3
yeah,
words. And the rabbis have always said, why doesn't it start with Aleph? It should start with Aleph. It starts with the son, because this universe is the story of
yeah.
Jesus. So you go on
Makes
and
me
on.
think of Barabbas. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yes, son of the
Son,
Father.
son of the Father. Yeah, Jesus was the true Barabbas. But
Mhm.
that's a total side
Because
note. But it's made me
no,
think of it.
it's a brilliant piece of truth, is that Bar is son and Abba is the father. So they
Hmm.
cried out, free the son of the father. So from
Mm,
what was actually vocalized, the justice was done, which is the people said, free the son of the father. Obviously,
yeah,
they meant the other one, because
right.
the heart is only evil continually. Okay. So the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is going to fly in the face of the Big Bang Theory, which we'll see in a minute. The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. This is what this scene looks like. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the deep. This is as tranquil and beautiful and serene an image as you can have. If you could think of the sound, it would be just this quiet, peaceful thing happening. You could almost even meditate on it. God intentionally, through his word, which is information, he fabricated very peacefully and intently this reality. What does the official story say? This is how the earth was formed. You go to school and they teach you this is how the earth was formed. It's called the Great Bombardment. Fire, destruction, chaos, right? And what does God say? Peaceful.
Yeah.
Fire, water, obviously exact opposites. We go to this definition, explosion, opposite of explosive, non-violent, peaceful, controlled, laid back, calm, gentle, mild, and safe. They say that the universe began through an explosion. They'll tell you the Big Bang wasn't an explosion, but it technically, rapid expansion in space, whatever. If you look up the definition of explosion, it was an explosion.
Yeah, yeah.
So in one worldview, the universe, it creates itself through a destructive explosion, which created all of the energy that ever happened in the universe in this one singular moment. According to the Bible, God spoke reality into existence. One is chaos. One is, things blowing apart. One is peaceful and controlled and calm and gentle and intended. So these imageries, just to start off with, this is the disparity between what happened, what the God of the Bible told us, and what we were taught in school. It's as different as fire and water, explosion and peace and calmness. They're antithetical to one another. So I don't. You can collapse my screen a little bit down because I don't have any other images right now. But did you want to add to that? Have you ever thought of it that way?
No, honestly, I haven't. I mean, I've never thought of it in the sense of it being this, opposite. One is this fiery explosion, and the other is this kind of tranquil, peaceful scene. And that is definitely helpful, and it's super helpful when you have graphics to give. And
Right.
it just makes me think of we were talking about Dr. Jason Lyle before this, and all of the discoveries that he's been making with the James Webb Space Telescope, and essentially how that has debunked the Big Bang Theory, how it's what they have discovered has made it so that the Big Bang Theory is not possible at all. And I forget the technical terms that he uses for the different models.
So
Drawing a blank.
the Big Bang model is called the Lambda CDM model. That's the name of the Big Bang Theory, which posited hydrogen and helium at the beginning, collapsing into stars. The stars in the nuclear furnaces called nucleosynthesis start spitting out the heavier
Yeah.
metals, carbon and oxygen,
Yeah.
whatever. And this process was estimated to have taken billions of years. And now they're to 300 million years after the Big Bang, and the universe is fully formed galaxies.
Yeah.
High metallicity, which shouldn't be there, fully organized, fully massive, fully luminous. The Big Bang
Yeah.
Theory is dead. Yeah.
So I think what I'm thinking of is where he's explaining the different theories of expanse, like the expanse of space, where he gives the one example of if you draw like 3 different dots on a balloon and you blow the balloon up, and then the dots are Doppler. Is that the Doppler model?
Also,
Or is the Doppler model where everything is just moving away from
yeah,
each
you
other?
got a couple ideas there. One is the fabric of space. 1 second. I got to just reset my camera. Sorry to everybody. Every so
That's all
often,
good.
it's going to do that. So it's like a screensaver for my camera. Nice work, VR. Anyways, one was such a 2-bit operation that we're doing. So one of the space fabric idea is built into Einsteinian physics, and it's the idea that everything in the universe is tacked to what they call the fabric of space, and it's the fabric that's expanding.
Space itself.
Space itself is a fabric. This is where you get the
Right.
idea of a bowling ball on a trampoline, and everything, goes down to the bowling ball because it's actually on a fabric. What
Right.
Dr. Lyle is talking about with his the work that he did on looking at the JWST data, he no longer thinks that there's a fabric of space. He thinks that the galaxies are actually moving as separate entities. So that's that part. And then the Doppler is the redshift. So the idea of the Big Bang started with Georges Lemaitre, where they noticed that the galaxies that are further away from us are more red shifted. And so light is a spectrum from
Yeah.
ultraviolet to infrared. And
Hmm.
so the lower end, you could think about like bass with like sound waves. The
Yep.
lower end would be red shifted. It'd be longer wavelengths. And so the idea is those are moving away from us, which is the expansion of the universe. So does that
Right.
clarify those?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely exactly what I was trying to remember and talk about. I need to get maybe some of his physics books, the Physics of Einstein book or something. They'll probably
Uh, I don't think you should.
no.
I love Dr. Lyle. I disagree with him on that. We actually, if you watch my interview with him, it was interesting because he's been a hero of mine for a long time. We disagree fundamentally on some things that we kept it very peaceful. And
Yeah.
I, again,
Yeah.
very a big fan of his work. He's a brilliant man. But he adheres to Einsteinian physics. And if I were
Yeah.
to be critical of him, or he could be critical of me in the same way, I think he gives too much credence to materialism or reductionism and Einsteinian physics. That I understand why, because
Mm.
he's academically trained, same level
Yeah.
as Neil deGrasse Tyson, actually better academic credentials than Neil deGrasse Tyson. And as we
Yeah.
are going to talk about here, the more you're educated, the more you're persuaded and compelled to believe in naturalism. So I think Dr. Lyle he believes very much in Einsteinian physics. And where I disagree with him is I think Einstein was blatantly wrong about a lot of his assumptions about the universe, in
Mm.
particular, everything being fundamental, what being fundamental to reality is matter. I believe what's fundamental to reality is information. And so Lyle still kind of holds on to the Einsteinian physics. But
Mm.
as we talked about in my interview with him, quantum entanglement was proven true. The universe is either not real or not local. Real locality has been disproven, which, according to Alan Aspect, who won the Nobel Prize for proving quantum entanglement, the violation of Bell's inequality, what does he say in his acceptance speech? He says, therefore, the ideas of Einstein can no longer be tenable. Basically, Einstein was wrong. So I think that I love Dr. Jason Lyle. I think that
Yeah. Yeah.
he's really still into Einsteinian physics because that's what he was classically trained in, and I think
Yeah.
Einstein was basically wrong. So
Sure.
he's coming out of it. I think with the fabric of space thing. That's a big deal that he's willing to concede that because that's part of the lambda CDM
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah. So, anyways, I don't think you need to read the physics of Einstein personally, but I do think you need to. We all need to be abreast to the issues with the Big Bang Theory and
Yeah.
what the James Webb has really found. Because at this moment, the cosmology in the book of Genesis, which is a fully formed universe that's expanding, is
Yes.
more accurate than the Big Bang Theory was.
Yeah,
Christians need to know that.
and it's lining up with what the James Webb Telescope's finding too.
Yeah.
They're finding the farthest away galaxies that they can see fully formed.
Mhm.
Not these baby galaxies that they were expecting to find, and
Right.
it's pretty
Which
amazing the things that they're
Dr. Lyle
finding.
predicted.
Yeah, yeah,
He predicted before he came, and he put a lot. They already don't take him seriously. He came up. So I was trying to talk to him about in this interview with him. So he came up with a synchrony convention, which is the one-way speed of light being instantaneous. If you remember him talking about this, it's called the anisotropic synchrony convention. He posited this idea to get around the starlight problem a decade ago,
Is
and
this the thing where he's talking about the speed of light and how we really only know the speed of light in
two ways.
yeah, two ways, not one way? I
Mhm.
think I've heard him speak on
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but
So he talks about the Einsteinian synchrony convention, which is the idea that that planet or that star is a billion light years away, is wrong. So he's critical of Einstein. That's what I told him in the interview. I'm like, so you don't agree with the Einstein synchrony convention? You think that light is instantaneous in one direction, which can only really happen if in a quantum reality, which I'll explain here in a minute, maybe. And now you're out on the fabric of space, which is Einstein's idea. I'm like,
yeah.
was Einstein right about anything? And he was like, no, he was still right about some things. So I think that in the process of time, if there's what's true doesn't matter because whoever writes the history books determine the version of history that we all consume. But if there's any integrity in scientific journalism and scientific history, they're going to look at this time that we've been in as the dark ages of science, where rabid materialism replaced good science. genuine inquiry, novel discovery. Just science philosophically is finding evidence to support an existing worldview, which is ascientific. It's non-scientific to go, okay, what should we find? Go look for it, right? The scientific method is, this is the hypothesis, and we're going to see if the data confirms the hypothesis, and we're going to be rigorously skeptical. And if the data doesn't confirm it, then what we're going to do is we're going to punt on the theory because the theory's wrong.
Yeah.
That's not what they're doing. They created cosmic inflation to explain the CMBR. It's anisotropic. It's isotropic. It should have been anisotropic. The expansion is accelerating. They created dark energy. The structure of the universe, the galaxies don't match what should have happened in Einsteinian thought. So they created dark matter and now the fully formed galaxies. So they stopped doing good science. And I think fundamentally, which is one of the things I want to talk about in this, it's the idea it's the difference of idealism versus materialism. Are you familiar with those two different philosophies?
With more so with materialism. I know I've read about idealism, but you can go ahead and touch on it a little bit so everybody's
everybody is in one of two camps. We're either an idealist or a materialist. If you're an idealist, you believe that a conscious mind created matter. If you are a materialist, you believe that matter created the conscious mind.
It's like oneism versus twoism.
Yeah. So Einstein was a materialist, rabid materialist, dyed in the wool, blue chip. It is matter, which is why he forfeited quantum entanglement, because he said it can't be that two photons are quantum entangled because one photon is being acted upon by the other with some sort of wave or particle, and that's limited by the speed of light. So therefore, quantum entanglement isn't true, and he called it spooky action at a distance and wrote a paper called the EPR paper, where he just said he dismissed it out of hand and thwarted the progress of quantum physics for 60 years, remarkably, with the stroke of a pen, by him saying, it's not true, it doesn't agree with my theory, and so we just stopped pursuing it. And remarkable that happened. So science has been rooted in materialism. The idea that matter is fundamental, matter happened through some sort of natural process, matter over the process of time created everything, including our consciousness. And Einstein having that presupposition, science having that presupposition, has been doing very bad science for centuries, decades at least, but a century and a half anyways. So I want to tie that into what we were talking about water versus fire. As marked of a difference as those two are, an explosion versus an intended information-based creation, the series of information that they told us to believe is as antithetical as those examples all the way through. So check this out. What's the opposite of young?
Old.
Right. So does the Bible a young earth book or an old earth book?
Well, it depends on who you ask, but I'd say young earth.
Yeah.
I'm a young earth guy, but I know that, I know that's a hotly.
Yeah, whatever. But the Bible says it's young.
Yeah.
And so they say it's old.
Right.
It's the opposite.
They just do the opposite of, whatever it is.
So, you're a human being that's lived on the earth for an amount of decades. Do things in your experience, your house, your car, your body, do things get better over time or do they get worse over time?
Well, they seem to wear down, which is what the second law of thermodynamics would suggest. But scientists seem to. It's weird that they'll espouse all these scientific ideas until it goes against their theories, and then all of a sudden they have some kind of, as again Jason Lyle would put it, a rescuing device.
Absolutely.
For what they're saying, but yes, they wear down.
Yeah. Okay. So the truth is, you build a house with intention, conscious agents, grabbing resources and planning. A house God is so cool in his creation. It's all these fractal archetypes. So our body is the temple, right? The Bible talks about this. So think of our body as a house. How is a house constructed? A guy has an idea. He has a blueprint. There goes my pen. He has a blueprint. He draws up the house. He figures out the engineering. He figures out the electrical, figures out the plumbing. He uses tools. He builds a house. This is what our body is. What's fundamental to life is information, is DNA, which is the instruction set. It's the blueprint that instructs nanomachines to build your body. So this is our body is a house, and this house is a 120-year-old farm home. They built it brand new 120 years ago. And over the process of time, after the conscious agent with planning and tools and stuff built the house, it's been getting worse over time. It's entropically degrading. Disorder is increasing. This is the truth of how things work. You start off with
So you're saying your house did not turn into a spaceship mansion over time?
It didn't. No, it didn't. Wind and dust didn't start to build this house, and now it's on its way to flying into space. Yeah, it didn't evolve computers. It just, it's weird.
That's a
It's getting
shame.
worse over time. Yeah, it is a shame. It's too bad. I think we should all we really should put a petition in and say we should generally disagree that entropy is something that we like, because your car breaks down, your body breaks down, etc. Anyways, the truth is things start off in a good state. The Bible says, and it was good, or it was very good.
Yep.
And over time, things get worse. The truth is they start good because of design and creation, and because of entropy, things break down. Things get worse over time. What did they teach us? We started off with nothing. It became more ordered somehow. The universe became more ordered. The earth became more ordered. Life happened. It became more ordered. And through a series of accidents, which, by the way, mistakes make things worse, right? That's generally how this works. Through a series of accidents, we went from a lower ordered state to the human brain. It's not tenable. It doesn't agree with the laws of physics. And it's the opposite of truth. The theme here that we've covered so far is the things that they're teaching us to believe in this theory are based on anti-truth.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-truth about how the mechanism of the universe works, and anti-truth about what the creator of the universe told us historically about what he has done.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of true.
And it was the spring, to me, it seems like it's like the springboard for postmodern thought. All of these different philosophies, you had,
Of course,
like existentialism springing from these types of ideas, that there's the universe is meaningless and absurd, and we create our own meaning in an absurd universe. And
Yep.
and then postmodern thought, there is no truth, all of these different things. I think that every one of those ideas really wouldn't have existed if Darwin didn't publish his work on the origin of species, which, for those listening and watching, if you don't know the complete title of that book, I feel like it's important to get it out there just to show the racism behind it. But it was On the Origin of Species, by means, of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. So I just wanted to, throw that out there, that that was kind of the springboard for what Hitler did too.
Not kind of.
And
directly.
I guess I'm being a little too little too nice here, but
well, that's
important.
I want to segue that into the next point. Continue.
Sure. Yeah. No, I was just saying, it's. I think it's important to kind of go back into the philosophical thought, that to understand where we are as a culture, like how have we arrived at this postmodern idea that there really is no truth, and it's like this postmodernism came through existentialism, which seemingly came through this materialistic naturalism, and all of these were just kind of different philosophies that you see come about through history. I mean, and all of those were kind of more recent than some of the others, like Platonism and things like that. But regardless, I think it's relevant.
It's super relevant. I love what you're covering here, and it is absolutely a result of the Age of Enlightenment. This was all a part of scientific materialism. This is the history. People started losing touch with what it means to be human, because science has replaced the need for a creator and accountability. And so, it's like we end up in this weird area where it's like, what's the point? We're all animals in a meaningless universe. And it was exactly intended. If you would show my screen, I'm going to go through some really important points that you brought up that you are all over. Okay, many people have heard of Thomas Henry Huxley. Thomas Henry Huxley is known as Darwin's bulldog. Darwin and Huxley were kind of like Moses, Aaron. Darwin, I mean, like the anti-Moses and Aaron.
Yeah.
But Moses, said he wasn't a good speaker. And God's like, fine, your brother can do it. Darwin wasn't a good speaker. He was reclusive and introverted. And Huxley was a champion of debate and a public figure, a scientific communicator. So he's Darwin's bulldog. Let's see here. About to start writing on the origin of species. Darwin saw Huxley's star rising, visited the Down House. These were aristocratic European racist white guys who you wanted to use science partially to justify their racism, which we're going to get into in a minute. Again, anti-truth. There's one race, the human race, and literally, color, skin deep, and we're all descendants of Adam and Eve, and all descendants of Noah and his family very recently. It's anti-truth again. Okay. Darwin and Huxley, while complemented each other perfectly, the reclusive Darwin needed a public champion and defender. Huxley had initial difficulty with natural selection, meaning Huxley didn't even believe what Darwin was saying. He didn't believe it. He struggled with natural selection and opted for an internal source of variation that could produce new species at a stroke. Nonetheless, he saw Darwin's naturalistic, i.e., non-miraculous approach as a valuable aid. Everybody needs to hear this. Mark, this needs to sink in. Everybody needs to hear this. As a valuable aid in his campaign to build an independent scientific elite unfettered by the constraints of the old order. This wasn't about science. This was, he hated Christianity. He coined the term agnosticism, and people were believing Darwin, and he goes, you know what? We have to convince the world that the God of the Bible did not create us. Huxley, Haeckel, Darwin, Lyell, all buddies, all anti-theists. Darwin might have been a little bit more middling, but he definitely wasn't a believer. His wife was. And they wanted to take over. They wanted to free Europe from basically the theocracy that was Catholicism and the Church of England. They had taken over. They had a theocracy, unfortunately, and they wanted to use science to crawl out from underneath this control. The next paragraph we need to cut to. Huxley carried the standard of scientific naturalism and evolution on a number of battlefields. He challenged the notion of supernatural creation, informing his democratic artisans that humans had arisen from animals, a lowly ancestor bright future image that appealed to the downtrodden, and that Darwin's nature was a book open for all to read rather than the prerogative of priests. Again, anti-truth. We're made cobbled together out of the dirt with life breathed into us, made in the image of living God. We're clearly different than the animals, which we're going to cover in a minute. We aren't like the other 7.5 million animals. I think there's far fewer than that. But anyways, we're not like them. We're clearly different. We have dominion over them. We come from them. Huxley obviously wanted to push this idea. And you just go through it further, and he was going to take over science, and he was going to destroy Christianity on all battlefields. And he was going to, what does it say here? We go down just a little bit further. He created a group called the X Club. It's somewhere else, the article. But anyways, they created a group called the X Club, and they basically said, we're going to convince the world that naturalism is a kind of science. We're going to promote people who agree with us. We're going to stifle anybody who disagrees with us. We're going to take over science. So that's very important. Now, Haeckel, who is his buddy, this is crazy. This is
so science being whatever they deemed was science, not the actual. So it's kind of like the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where you basically just shoot a bunch of bullets against the side of a building, and then you draw a bullseye around it to make it seem as though you hit the mark right on the right on the bullseye.
Of course, yeah. They didn't have evidence at that point. They were just wanting to push naturalism because they hated the God of the Bible. Very simple. So, okay, this is this kind of racist that Haeckel was. Ernst Haeckel is very important. Let me actually do a Google search really quick for Ernst Haeckel so you guys can
embryos. Isn't he the one with the?
Yes. Yep.
Which
Ernst
has
Haeckel.
been debunked, but it's still for some reason in all of the textbooks
because it's anti-truth. Because it's not about truth. Crucially contributed to the visualization of Darwinian theory by designing multiple phylogenetic trees reflecting evolutionary pathways. Huge forger. We're going to read some of that in a second. This is the kind of ethnology that Haeckel subscribed to. You can see here the most baboon-looking, least human chimp, whatever version. A little bit more. I think these are probably some version of the Jews that he was putting in there because he was very anti-Semitic.
Man.
These look a little bit more human, and then basically you get like Africans. And
Yeah.
so basically they're like much closer to, and this is his worldview. Obviously, I disagree
Yeah.
entirely
Right.
with this. Fundamentally, at the very core of all of it, it's from straight from hell.
Right.
Then you get like the less chimp, I guess, looking African guy, something more like a Mongolian, whatever, and then you end up with the blonde hair, blue eye Aryans, basically. And this was his phylogenetic tree that he came up with. This is how
Oh
it
man.
works: most evolve, least evolved. Most evolved, least evolved. And what does this
So
lead to?
he had the Jewish guy way down
Mhm.
as maybe the first version of the human form of the
Yeah.
evolutionary chain there.
If
That's very
Right,
interesting.
if that is a Jewish guy, which it's something that either doesn't exist or was trying to be critical of Judaism, but this is what Goebbels and all of the propagandists in Nazi Germany ran with, was this
Right.
idea of the Ubermensch and the white the Aryans were the height of it, and that these
Yeah.
were less human. They were related to rodents, and they needed to be exterminated, just like we need to kill rats. So this is Ernst Haeckel's anti-Semitism and contributions to Nazi biology. You said it kind of alluded to this. No, it was exactly caused
I
this.
mean, 100% did. Yeah.
Look at this
Like I
here.
said, I think I was being a little more charitable
Yeah.
than I should have been, but
Haeckel's greatest influence was, this is an author named Gaussman working with Stephen Jay Gould on this paper from the University of Chicago. Haeckel's greatest influence was ultimately in another tragic direction: National Socialism. His evolutionary racism, his call to the German people for racial purity and unflinching devotion to a just state, his belief that harsh, inexorable laws of evolution ruled human civilization and nature alike, conferring upon favored races, there's that word you used again, the right to dominate others. The irrational mysticism that had always stood in strange communion with his grave words about objective science all contributed to the rise of Nazism. And then it says, for Haeckel, the Jews were the original source of decadence and morbidity of the modern world, and he sought their immediate exclusion from temporary life. Gaussman further argues that Haeckel's malign influence did not stop with Nazis. This German's idea became, in Gaussman's estimation, the primary source of fascism throughout Europe in the first part of the 20th century. To say that these are bad actors working in anti-truth is understating how severe what they've done here is. So yes, social Darwinism, ethnology, systemic racism, all of these things come from Darwinian evolution, where they wanted to use science to basically justify that they were the height of evolution, the top of the pyramid. And at the time, they didn't have any evidence. Darwin was drawing beaks. If you guys want to laugh at some point, read Origin of the Species and the science he was providing. It's insane. The lack of actual scientific inquiry is going on in this book.
Well, it's crazy that people will use that. If you ask them for an actual example of Darwinian evolution, they'll point to
beaks.
his finches. Darwin's finches with the beaks, and I'm like, okay, so this bird had this beak, and then this bird had this other beak. So a bird turned into a bird with a different beak. I mean, how is that Darwinian evolution? Darwinian evolution would say that bird turned into like a space rabbit or something. Not another bird with a different kind of beak. That's just seeing a small change in species, over a period of time. That's not saying that what one kind
This
of
is where
thing
the
turned
beak
into
came
another kind
from.
of thing.
Right. And that's part of the game that they play with truth, anti-truth, and how they've really manipulated everyone to believe in this theory is natural selection is true. It's a fundamental principle of reality that
Right.
if you aren't a good-looking model, you're not going to make it. If
Yeah.
you make a cheeseburger store and your cheeseburgers suck, you're not going to make it.
Right.
If you don't show yourself as proficient or able in a specific thing, you're going to be replaced by somebody who is.
Yeah. If you're a short-haired, bald dog living in the frozen tundras of Alaska, you're not gonna make
You're not going
it.
to survive. And
Yeah,
if
I
you're a
mean,
super hairy, furry, dense, thick, fur coat in the equator, you might struggle too.
yeah,
So the explanation, though, which I would say is true, is that God built into the gene code a robust gene code, dynamic gene code, capable of optimizing functionality inside of a very specific, limit or
right,
bandwidth. So
right,
skin colors, eye color, maybe slightly taller, slightly shorter, better ability to absorb oxygen at a higher altitude, etc., but
yeah,
not developing a new organ or
yeah,
losing an organ or whatever.
yeah,
It's very limited what can happen. So they say natural selection is true, and the beaks are different sizes, which are fine. Therefore, the lie. This process created
yeah,
the beak.
yeah.
This is the truth.
Which
This is the
it's
lie,
like
and you can't
which
test it.
one doesn't lead to the other. There's so much more that needs to happen in order for their version of this, evolution to actually be true. And the other thing that bugs me about the whole, Darwinian evolution, like one kind of thing turning into another kind of thing, is they go by this, um they swear by science and the scientific method, which was given to us by a Christian, by the way, Sir
Mhm.
Francis Bacon. And that's based on things that are testable and observable and repeatable under the right circumstances. And that their version of evolution is none of those things. It's never been tested, it's never been observed,
Mhm.
and it's never been repeated anywhere. And it's again, it kind of goes back to, yeah, we like science until there's this one thing that is kind of the antithesis of what we're espousing, and so we're just not going to talk about that.
Yep, that's how you get people to believe something that isn't true. You cherry pick the information, you gaslight them for questioning it, you leave out contradictory information, you over promote confirming information, and this is how they've done this for a very long time, and it's very effective. What they set into place is, if you can control academia and you can control, because that's kind of the tip of the pyramid, where this information is coming from. You
Hmm.
control what the definitions are, what the classifications are, what is science, what is not science, and you start pushing that down through the org chart to your elementary school teacher teaching the child.
Yeah,
Then by the time it gets to them, the teacher doesn't have access to the data. The teacher isn't
yeah,
seeing the experiments. The teacher's getting the curriculum and teaching the
yeah,
kids, what is true. And the kids, did you want to add to that? Because what I'm gonna go on to is gonna be a few minutes, probably, or a couple minutes.
yeah. I just, it was kind of a point that I wanted to make, is when you get down to that level in school, when you have it, that's kind of the sad part, and it's a shame that you have these young and impressionable minds who they don't know any better. And what if they come from a family that isn't a Christian family, and they're not hearing the actual truth? They're not hearing the other side of creation. They're not hearing
Mhm.
what the Bible says. They're not hearing what God's word says. They're only ever being told these, really unscientific lies from the classroom. And like you said, the teacher doesn't really know,
Mhm.
they're just being handed, like you said, the curriculum, and they're teaching it. And so these kids, they trust their teachers and they trust their parents.
Right.
And you know it, and that's just, they assume it's true because of the trust that they have in these people. And and that's just giving them this foundation to essentially grow up in a way that just rejects God. And it's like, you got to work harder to bring them back to what the actual truth is. And as you said before, this is all coming down from the top, and I think where it's coming from is those people that kind of started these theories were coming from a place of looking for a mechanism to suppress the truth, because that's what Romans 1 says about the human condition, is that in our unrighteousness we suppress the truth in unrighteousness, Romans 1:18. And we don't really at the end of the day, it's like we don't want there to be a God, because if there is a God, then I can't objectify women and you know
Right.
increase my, as the kids say these days, body count or whatever stupid crap they say.
Mhm.
But it's like we can't go and enjoy ourselves and live your best life and YOLO and do all the things that you want to do without any kind of moral accountability. And that's really where it comes from. And at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, well, am I going to believe what God says about people and their condition, or am I going to believe what people say about people and their condition? And so I think we would be right in saying that we should probably believe what God says about people because He's the one that made them and knows them best, not us.
Amen.
So
That's a great rant. I want to go back to Lyell and Huxley here in a minute and
mhm.
some to tie that back up, but I want to add to what you just said.
Yeah,
So, idealism versus materialism. We're idealists. We believe that the conscious agent that created matter is the God of the Bible. We believe Jesus was involved in creation. He is co-equal with God, however that works. There's a little bit of a mystery in there, but we believe Jesus is responsible for creation. God created reality through Jesus. Jesus is on the earth. And Jesus is the definition. You may not have ever heard this, but he's the definition of an anti-materialist.
yeah,
Materialism scientifically is the idea that matter creates consciousness. Materialism philosophically, not scientifically as much, as more eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. This is all that there is.
yeah,
YOLO. Get, because I'm only here for an amount of time. High body
yeah,
count, good. Things
yeah.
I get, good.
Consume.
Conquering, stealing, yeah, consuming, good. So
Yeah,
consumer materialism is a product of philosophic materialism, is a product of scientific materialism,
yeah, yeah,
right? One begets the other, begets the other. And
mm,
so Jesus comes here and he goes, don't worry about money. Money's it's monopoly money. It doesn't matter. God will
yeah,
provide for you. Don't think about money. Store your treasures in heaven.
right.
If you have money, give it to somebody. So these don't matter. He also said things like, talk about scientific materialism. Verily I say unto you, if you had enough faith, you could tell that mountain to become uprooted and fly into the sea, and it would. Because matter isn't what you think it is, and what you think affects reality, which Jesus was right about with the observer effect. Quantum entanglement is true, which isn't reconcilable with materialism, and the collapsing of the wave function is true, and the observer affects the state of matter. And Jesus is saying this. He curses the tree dies. They come back the next day. How did you do this? And he goes, because it's what we say matters. What we say matters. What we think matters and have an effect on the very reality that this is made up of. So he was talking about scientific idealism, philosophic idealism, and then consumer idealism. He was an anti-materialist. He was homeless. He didn't have a home. He didn't know where
Mm,
his money was coming from. He didn't
right.
care. And I believe very firmly that in eternity, when we're saved by what Jesus did on the cross. So when we go to the judgment seat of Christ and we're basically issued I would call it like an employee review. I think that's kind of what happens is he goes, well, you were a Christian. Great. You were saved. Did you bring people to Jesus? Did you bring people to me? Did you offend people? Did you give money? Did
Yeah,
you focus on the kingdom? And I think that people are going to have extravagant, amazing, stipends and what is it called when you leave a severance package? You're going to get
mm,
these and you're going to have
yeah,
mansions, and you're going to go, why does he have all these things and I don't? And it's going to be, well, because he was focused on the kingdom and doing
yeah,
kingdom work, and he wasn't
yeah,
focused on materialism. You were a Christian who went to church for an hour on Sunday and lived
yeah,
like everybody in the world. You had 5 SUVs and a mansion, and you were doing your own thing. And that guy was focused, that girl was giving what they had. So it's a really wild idea that you can do things on the earth that go into an account in heaven that probably have some sort of compounding interest. And if this is true and we get into heaven and we go, I could have used that monopoly money on the earth to have actual money in eternity. I really should have given more money. And Jesus is going to go, yeah, I told you. I told you to not be a materialist. It's weird. Like the
yeah,
Christian worldview is antithetical to the system's worldview, the one that that Lucifer
yeah.
runs. And part of this fundamentally is what you think about money and how much you value it. Jesus says you can't serve God and mammon, right? You serve one or the other.
Yeah.
And most Christians, and I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just
Right.
having everybody think about this, serve mammon. It's the job and the money and these kind of things. And I don't think Jesus is going to be impressed with that in the end. Does that mean everybody quit their job? No. But if he has a
Right.
calling on your life, pursue it. If he tells you to give the money to the person or whatever, do it. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Focus on being obedient to him more than being obedient to the world. And from like a dichotomy standpoint, if you're living Christianity like Jesus did, which none of us do, by the way, but if you're doing that, dude,
Right.
he was homeless, he had no money, and he was storing all of his treasures in heaven, and he ends up the King of Kings. He wins this. He wins. He was the most effective person to have ever lived as far as what God had intended, and his focus was on eternity, in as much as giving up his life at a young age, at the height of his athletic ability, for other people. So they're not compatible, and they wanted to teach us these scientific, philosophic, and then consumer materialism, because again, this has been kind of this theme tonight, is it's anti-truth. It's the opposite of what is true. Jesus is truth. The Bible is truth. Matter doesn't matter. What matters
Right.
is the kingdom, and we were taught the exact opposite. You believe in
Yeah.
God, you don't understand science. You're an idiot. You don't want to focus on your money and your prestige and all of these things. You're an idiot. You don't understand. You need to live wild and extravagant. What is live in La Vida Loca? This whole
Yeah.
idea is that's what they want you to do. And so the Christian worldview is really antithetical to the one that the world system posits. And it's one of the reasons I deconstructed in my early 20s after a series of traumas. And one of the things that reconstructed me back, science was one of them. But this idea that whatever is running the world, this greedy, materialist, one world system kind of thing that we see, it's antithetical to what Jesus said. And so you have this version of the biblical account, which Jesus dying for us is the most beautiful, romantic hero story in the history of reality. And I believe this is the fundamental truth of eternity. And then you have this other version where it's eat, steal, kill, destroy. And the people who
Yeah.
align with that idea are the ones who get success here on this world. And so if you look at what Jesus says, when Satan took him up to a high place and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and said, if you bow your knee to me, I will put you in charge of all of this.
Yeah.
There are people who decide to get into bed literally or metaphorically with the devil, and
Yeah.
they do this and they get unbelievable amount of money and power and prestige. And so me reconstructing and understanding these fundamental truths, even if God isn't real, which obviously we believe he is, and even if the devil isn't real, which obviously we believe he is, the people who align with the devil's version of the story get here and succeed and dominate. And people who choose Jesus's suffer. And if you look at what society needs, it's people being like what Jesus said for us to do, loving your brother, being selfless. This is what we need to have. So you have this at the very deep level of us in a binary sense. Who do you choose? The God of this world, the little g God, Satan, or the God of all of reality, the creator, Melech HaOlam, Yahweh, Yeshua, Jesus? And it's very, a lot of us kind of spend time in the middle, but that truth of what God said versus what's happening in the world was one of the things that I go, you know what? This is true archetypally. If the Bible isn't true, this is true. And obviously we also believe that the Bible's true, but it's a fundamental thing. And then these people that, whether it's Huxley or Haeckel, all these people that have pushed this anti-God agenda, they were able to push it through because the devil is the little g God of this world. And if you look at the American Natural History Museum and the eugenics, these were all social Darwinists, and the way that the fakes of this is what Carl Werner and I covered, the fakes of the fossils, the ones that are incomplete or that they lied about. Guys like Donald Johanson, who discovered Lucy, who is an anti-theist and named it likely after Lucifer, Lucy, and totally forged this to convince the world that nature is your true creator. He's quoted in the Freedom from Religion talk that he has. I covered in a couple of my videos where he goes, and we need to get that name of God off of our money. This is the kind of anti-theist he is. And he's the guy that finds Lucy. Are you kidding me? The darkness of the people who built this story to you, to me, aligns with what I believe is the most parsimonious worldview in reality, that the God of the Bible is our creator, and the enemy of God, the deceiver Satan, rewards his own. And this is how we ended up in this mess of believing that we're animals in a meaningless universe. It's entirely consistent with history, the laws of physics, science, and data. And everybody, like, I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to be on your show, and I understand it was a huge way to get here, but I want everybody to know that are Christians, we are on the right side of history. Just like we know how terrible the last 40 years of this presidency was, and what Trump has even done in the last few days being in office, the difference of trying to restore this republic and to try to bring wealth and freedom to America versus what's going on from the left, when we're watching this Biden administration run this thing off of the rails, and we go, this is not fair and this is not good. And now Trump comes in, and obviously even though the media is like, oh, he's so evil and blah, 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 and he's cleaning house. In the same way that we know we're on the right side of history with that presidential election, even though we're gaslit by the left constantly, and the atheists constantly, and the scientists constantly, we're on the right side of history with this. Jesus is the king. The Bible is our history. The God of the Bible did create us in his image. You are not an animal in a meaningless universe. And the people that told you that are on the wrong side of history. Huge rant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, man. Amen. It just makes me think, like, one of my favorite things is just watching the inconsistency of atheism, or even, because that was the most recent point you made, but talking about like politics and Trump and Biden and whatever, there's a lot of people on the political left that are naturalistic atheists. And a lot of those people are the people that were complaining about Trump for the first 4 years that he served, and they would go online and they would complain every single day. Look how evil this man is. Look what he's doing. When really they're just believing a bunch of bullcrap lies that really aren't true at all. But that's another story. But the funny thing is that, and I know a few of them, is that you have these naturalistic atheists, and they're espousing and saying that what Trump is doing is wrong. It's objectively wrong. And I'm like, well, you got a big intellectual and philosophical problem there, because if all we are materials and fish became philosophers and we're stardust bumping into other stardust, then nothing Trump does at all is incorrect or wrong. It's just not your preference. It's really just your opinion. There's no objective right or wrong in that. And their whole worldview falls apart when they realize that they don't live consistently with the things that they say are true, like evolution and time and space acting on matter over billions of years, or whatever ridiculous number they're at now. It's just not consistent. They swear that there's wrong and right in the universe, but on what standard are they saying that? They can't answer that question, and when they're backed into a corner, they basically just get mad because they realize that their worldview really just doesn't work at all. Your mic's muted. I don't know if you knew that, but
yeah, thanks for letting me know. So this is I didn't expect to go here, but how much time do we have? I don't know. I don't want to run long on your podcast where.
No, you're fine. I probably have probably another 10 minutes or so. I got to pick the kids up from the,
I don't know if I can do this in 10 minutes, but I'm going to try. Will you share my screen really quick?
Okay.
Yeah,
bring it back up.
So this is crazy. So we end up talking about academia and the corrupt left stuff that's going on, and how we know this leftist, communist, atheist thing is an agenda, and it's obviously the wrong side of history. So this is from a group called the AAUP, the American Association of University Professors.
Okay.
JD Vance is kind of coming after them, talking about the top of the pyramid coming down and this information coming down. The ascension of J.D. Vance to the Republican presidential ticket has brought the decades-long battle to define the future of American higher education to a tipping point. With Vance, American far-right authoritarians have succeeded in elevating a fascist to aggressively attack universities in this country to within striking distance of their goal, annihilation of American higher education as we know it. Right? It's just how far
Yeah,
gone these people
heaven forbid we take away the ability to get a gender studies doctorate.
Oh yeah, this is what this is what ends up coming up here. Watch this. Let's see here. All those who care about higher education, academic freedom, and the future of democracy. They always use that word. So does Donald Johansson. The future of democracy should prepare for the fight ahead by organizing their campus communities. Vance's labeling of professors as the enemy and his praise of the Hungarian dictator Viktor Blabla's universities as the closest thing conservatives have gone to successfully feeling. I'm going to go down a little bit. Recent history of right-wing attacks on higher education. We'll actually read this for a minute. Between 21-23, more than 150 bills were introduced in state legislators by radical conservatives seeking to undermine academic freedom and university autonomy. This is what they want. We will say whatever we want. We want all of the money. We want to tell you what to believe and tell your children what to believe. And J.D. Vance is going to come in here and tell us that we don't have full autonomy and authority. No way. He's a fascist, right? This gets into like this is really wild. Okay, check this out. These bills included what terrible things are the conservatives introducing? These bills including 99 academic gag orders seeking to ban critical race theory, or so-called divisive concepts, as well as efforts to defund campus diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So they're going to use those, right? They want to get rid of CRT and these DEI things, right? This is what our whole thing is built on, is faux inclusion.
Marxism.
Yeah, Marxism. Ask the Christians if inclusion is actually going on here. Anyways.
Right. Yeah. It's inclusion for who? Because I haven't experienced that.
Inclusion for the people who agree with them.
Right.
That's inclusive. Okay. So the other things that he's talking about, initiatives to weaken tenure and accreditation and establish academic programs to designed to teach and promote ideological agendas. While attacks on American higher education are nothing new, the scope of the Project 2025 blueprint for the Trump-Vance presidency offers a frightening glimpse into the authoritarian future that would transform American colleges and universities into thought control factories by stifling ideas, silencing debate, and destroying autonomy. This is like...
That's what it is now.
It's what it is now. I'm telling you, it's anti-truth.
Yeah.
They're so far gone when their worldview is based on refusing Jesus that everything that is being said is the opposite of what is true. They want to turn us into thought control factories and silence debate, stifling ideas. This is exactly what the left does. Okay. Anyways,
where's there even debate right now? There is no debate. They don't allow for it.
Look at TikTok, which was shut down. Yeah. It's unbelievable that the Deans and the Parkers and all these leftists that are making their money trying to destroy, the Trump campaign had TikTok saved by Trump because the left already canceled it. Anyways, I don't get too passionate about that. Project 2025 would roll back decades of progress on access to higher education, eliminate protections for LGBTQ plus students and sexual assault survivors, privatize student loans and loan forgiveness, and if we take it at their author's word, abolish the Department of Education entirely. We cannot afford to let this happen. Ready for this? Without a just and inclusive higher education system that serves the public good, the majority of Americans will be excluded from meaningful participation in our democracy. The AAUP is dedicated to fighting for an inclusive higher education system that works for and is led by working people, students, and the communities it serves. We call for our national leaders to help resolve higher education crisis by fully funding higher education, expanding access, ending the student debt emergency, and protecting the freedom to learn, speak, assemble, research, and organize in higher education institutions. This thing is the definition of saying, we want to teach your children whatever. We want to have all of the money and autonomy. You coming in here with your Christian ideals is unacceptable. We will teach Marxist, leftist, atheism, naturalism, and you will not stop us. Now check this out. The AAUP was partially created by John Dewey. Some of you guys know who John Dewey is, but this John Dewey was one of the signers of the American Humanist Manifesto. If we go down to the
you don't say.
Yeah, it's great. So the American, okay, so he is one of them. There's a bunch of signers here, but John Dewey is in here, and whatever, somebody will see it. We're running out of time, but anyway, John Dewey's in here. The American Humanist Association. This was written in 1933. The manifesto was a product of many minds designed to represent developing point of view, not a new creed. Scrolling down, today man's larger understanding of the universe, again, written in 1933. You want to know where Darwinian evolution and the Big Bang come from? Watch this. His scientific achievements and a deep appreciation of brotherhood have created a situation which requires a new statement of the means and purpose of religion. Such a vital, fearless, and frank religion capable of furnishing adequate social goals and personal satisfactions, you mentioned that earlier, may appear to many people as a complete break with the past. While this age does owe a vast debt to the traditional religions, obviously Christianity is what they're mainly talking about here, it is nonetheless obvious that any religion that can hope to be a synthesizing and dynamic force for today must be shaped for the needs of this age. To establish such a religion is a major necessity of the present. It is a responsibility which rests upon this generation. We, therefore, affirm the following. This is a religion. Scientific naturalism, humanism is a religion by their own
arrogant.
Ready?
It's just so arrogant.
The first tenet, if you are creating a new religion, you always have to say, who are we? How did we get here? Who's in charge? The first tenet of secular humanism. Religious humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. Where does the book of Genesis start?
God
in the
created.
beginning, God created the heavens and the universe. The first tenet of humanism, God didn't create the universe. It created itself or always existed. Who cares? Second tenet, humanism believes that man is a part of nature and that he has emerged as a result of a continuous process. Darwinian evolution hadn't been accepted in 1933. People weren't believing it. They were trying to push this thing. They don't care. Evolution is a placeholder for what they actually believe, which is that man is a part of nature and that he has emerged as a result of a continuous process. He was not created by the God of the Bible. It goes on and on. It goes on and on. This is a religious system. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Charles Lyell, friends with Charles Darwin. He was a close friend of Charles Darwin and contributed significantly to Darwin's thinking on the process involved in evolution. Charles Lyell Lyell himself said that the purpose of this work was to free science from Moses. Lyell wanted to remove all influence of Christianity from natural science, destroying finally the proper hierarchy of established by the scholastics. So Lyell said, we're going to free science from Moses. He's the geologist that wrote Principles of Geology, which is still taught today. He came up with uniformitarianism, which we talked about all the opposites earlier. The opposite of catastrophism or catastrophe is non-catastrophe. Right. He posited uniformitarianism, which is that everything that happened is a process of uniform processes over deep time. Yeah. Turns out he was dead wrong.
Always been the same. Everything has always operated.
No catastrophic. The Grand Canyon was not formed by the flood. Yeah. Right. So he was wrong again because his worldview is based on anti-truth. This is a very big part of this theme. His worldview is based on anti-truth. He posited it in opposition to the living God and the truth of his word. So it was a fundamental lie at the beginning, pushed by the serpent, the great serpent lying in the garden. And over the process of time, as more data came in, turned out being wrong because it wasn't about science. It was about getting God out of science, which they said specifically. Now check this out. And I was able to wrap through that quicker than I thought I'd be able to. Thomas Henry Huxley, Darwin, Lyell, all buddies. Galton, all the eugenicists, all the races, they gave rise to Nazism, social Darwinism, a lot of the huge problems that have happened in medicine because of believing in things like vestigial organs. All these guys, they all work together. Again, a rich, elite European aristocracy. Did Thomas Henry Huxley and Haeckel actually know each other? You won't have heard this anywhere else. I've found a lot of proprietary research. Thomas Henry Huxley and Ernst Haeckel. This was December 28th of 1874. Huxley writes, "My dear Haeckel, you Nazi racist butt. My dear Haeckel, this must reach you in time to wish you and yours a happy new year in English fashion. May your shadow never be less, and may all your enemies, those Christians, unbelieving dogs who resist the prophet of evolution. It is a religion. Be defiled by the sitting of jackasses upon their grandmothers' graves." He curses them. He curses Christians who disbelieve in the great prophet of evolution. I mean, these guys are like, this is as dark of a history between as bad an actors as we've ever seen. And unfortunately, your children go to school and I'm trying to stop my screen share. Okay. And your children go to school and the elementary school teacher says to the kiddies, "Hey, you're an animal in a meaningless universe." And the kids go, "Well, I have animals. I have a goldfish. I flushed him down the toilet. I don't think I'm the same as a goldfish." Yeah, but you are. And you go, And then they go, "What? And the universe, where'd it come from?" Nothing. It came out of nothing. Just here it is. The universe came out of nothing. Everything happened from nothing. And the kid goes, no, I'm only 6, but things don't. If I was outside and a ball appeared, I'd go, whoa, something's going on here. This is crazy. The kid goes, no, everything didn't come from nothing. That makes no sense. Things don't get better over the time. I have a wagon and it rusted and it fell apart. My batteries die on my remote control car. I know things get worse over time, and I'm not the same as the animals. And so now the kid has a problem. I don't think what you're saying is true. So either you're lying, but I know how can I say that you're lying? You're in reality, because what I believe about this reality is the opposite of what you're telling me. Therefore, I can't trust my intuition. You tell me what to believe.
Yeah. And then, what the scary thing is that the kid that grows up believing that, obviously it's an extreme example, and it's not every kid that grows up believing that.
Columbine.
But exactly. You got school shootings, and then we want to act like that school shooting was somehow wrong when you taught that kid that there's absolutely no meaning to his life. His life has no value. Humans are just pond scum, and
you need to be the most fit.
We have nothing to be hopeful for in the future. And really, that kid is really the most fit kid in your classroom because he learned how to use a firearm and he educated himself, and he went in and he blew away all the weaker people. So why aren't you celebrating him?
Just like Hitler. Yep. He's the most fit. Just like Jeffrey Dahmer, who said in prison, we've all seen the clip, he goes, I believed I was an animal in a meaningless universe. So what was the problem with eating people? Animals eat people. I wanted to eat people. Whatever. I'm an animal. Who cares? And then he goes, but then his dad gave him the creation science stuff. It was either Hovind or Ken Ham or whatever. And he goes, and I found out that evolution was a lie. Dahmer was very smart. And he goes, I wish I was taught that. Like Dahmer said,
I might not have eaten people had I known that earlier on.
Darren Klebold and Eric Harris, I was in Colorado at the time. They wore a natural selection shirt and they targeted the black people because they were obviously Nazis as well, adhering to ACL. Listen to me. The blood on Columbine on 4/20, which is Hitler's birthday.
Yep.
The blood of the students that died on Columbine are on the hands of Ernst Haeckel.
When you were reading that document talking about getting rid of the Department of Education, I can't help but agree with getting rid of the Department of Education. You know who used to be in charge of education? The church. And you know who was way more educated when the church was in charge of it?
Oh yeah.
Literally everybody.
Every metric.
Every metric is way higher than it is now. They used to actually teach logic in school, how to actually think properly, how to use your reasoning and your mental faculties in the proper way. And now we have no idea how to do that. And that's how we've gotten to a place of saying men can get pregnant.
They can't teach you logic. Because if you understand logic, you won't believe their nonsensical fairy tale.
That's 100% true.
They can't teach you logic because their worldview is based on defying logic. And they say we use God of the gaps. Their whole worldview is based on miracles and science of the gaps. Basically saying, sure, it flies in the face of logic and everything that we know how it works. But hey, it had to have happened because it wasn't God. Because again, I keep hitting this point because their fundamental ideologic tenet is that God didn't create us.
Yes.
And if God did create us, their fundamental tenet of their worldview is the opposite of true. And you can never get the right answer. If you start off with the wrong assumption, the wrong formula at the beginning, I don't care how long you stare and look at that math problem, you're never going to get the right answer. And this is why I call this the dark ages of science. They have been trying to use science for almost 200 years now to prove a theory. How many other times is the point of science to prove an idea that a racist guy, an elite guy had 200 years ago? And you're trying to use all the king's horses and all the king's men to prove this theory. Like, I think I went away. Good. Whether they blow up education or not, whatever, I don't care because that's up to the parent to decide.
Yeah.
What we need to do is not make a college degree a hireable requirement. So this comes down to the hiring managers. We need to stop only hiring people with a college degree. We're not going to stop higher education, although JD Vance might, but you can just hire people that don't have a college degree. That's a good thing that we can do. But we do need to blow up science. What has to happen is we need science reform. I've looked at the NSF database. I've found about $300 million that taxpayers have given in the last 20-ish years, 20, 30 years to prove the theory of evolution. Jack Horner, origin of life science, all of these different things. We're paying out of our pockets to do non-science under the auspice of science. We need results-based science. It needs to be audited. With these scientists that nobody in politics, nobody can question them. They're too smart. You don't understand the science that they're doing. They need to be audited. What have you produced? What have we spent? And what is the result? And how was that result applicable to the development of technology or medicine? You wouldn't believe what they would find. I mean, you think Elon Musk is going through like the Department of Redundancy and these different things. If he went through with a fine-tooth comb and exposed what science has actually been, which is the most fruitless, unscientific, waste of money and control of the human mind, which is what the AAUP was talking about, it would be remarkable. So I'm absolutely for reform of how science is done.
Yeah. And those scientists are only going to produce results that comport with their presuppositions that they brought to, the experiments that they're doing. And, Jason Lau talks a lot about that too in his book, Ultimate Proof of Creation. He's talking about how everybody has presuppositions. The atheist scientist does, the Christian scientist does. They come into the conversation and their experiments and their research with presuppositions. It's a matter of whose presuppositions are correct. And, I think when really pressed on it, the atheist presuppositions are more than wrong. I mean, you couldn't be more wrong.
Jesus says to judge a tree by its fruit, and look at the fruit of what evolution has brought with Nazism, systemic racism, vestigial structures. You and I talked about my autoimmune condition. I had my appendix removed in 2000, and I was fighting with my doctor back then. I think God put that there. No, you don't understand science. It was there through evolution. It doesn't need to be there. I've had a hard time with my gut health ever since. A lot of people report this kind of thing. The fruit that evolution has bore has been so wicked. The fruit of the Big Bang Theory, that it fell apart in our lifetime, in the last couple of years, as predicted by Dr. Jason Lyle.
Yeah.
It falling apart shows that was a tremendous misuse of money and resources and was unscientific. We're starting over. They were wrong. Like, if you could put science on a truth serum, they would come out and they would go, everything we thought we knew was wrong, and we have no idea.
You just need to get science drunk and let them.
Yeah. Legitimately, get them drunk. They'd go, turns out everything we think was totally wrong. It was a really weird idea anyways. Like, it's weird that anybody thought it would work. And it turns out that it's totally wrong. And so as of now, we have no idea how the universe got here. We have no idea how the earth formed. We have no idea how the moon formed. We have no idea how life started. We have no evidence of the theory of evolution. That's likely wrong. The reality isn't either real or it isn't local. Materialism seems to be dead, and we're back at zero. So here's
we're back at the drawing board and don't know where to start.
So we have all these tenured guys guys and gals who can't even do good science because they're so stuck in their ways. All they can do is come up with the same answer. Like, if you watch guys if you watch scientists like Sabine Hassenfelder talk about the crisis in science right now, she says the fundamental thinking is wrong. It's materialism, and you think that if you can collide particles together fast enough, they're going to break apart and you're going to find what's fundamental to reality. So you build a particle collider. You crash them together, you don't get the response. You don't get the answer you were looking for. So instead of going, maybe this isn't going to work, guess what they do? Build a bigger particle collider.
Maybe the particles weren't big enough. We need to smash them.
Faster, because we didn't get what we wanted. And so and they're literally CERN.
Let's waste more money.
The undertaking that CERN is so laughable that it's going to not work. So instead of cutting your losses and going, well, that was wrong, they're working on building a bigger particle collider than CERN to prove this theory. This is science right now. And guess what? All of the particle physicists who are stuck in, it doesn't matter, string theory, whatever this particle physics theory that they're in, they can just wait. and come up with new tests for the new particle collider and spend another $100 billion on the new particle collider. And when that's wrong, well, they can retire because it was wrong, but they got to make an entire living. Same thing with the astronomers, the astrophysicist, the Hubble. Okay, we need to build a bigger telescope. Wait. Oh, this is not what we expected. You know what? We're still right. We need a bigger telescope. So they're going to build a bigger telescope that can see 15 billion years. And then guess what they're going to see at 15 billion years or 18 billion years? A fully formed universe. And guess what they're going to say? We need a bigger telescope. And they can just keep this going.
I guess this started earlier than we thought. Now we need, exactly. Instead of just conceding and saying, hey, wow, the Bible just says it, it's kind of crazy that it said it for as long as we've had it, thousands of years. We could just look right here and it says God created the heavens and the earth, but we're going to keep wasting taxpayer dollars to get these bigger things to keep proving our theories wrong. And we're going to keep going back to the drawing board and keep going into these different experiments to try to, write God out of the equation. And it's just never going to work. And
meanwhile, we're going to tell all the kiddies, and I use the word kiddies intentionally because these people need to understand that lying to children is a problem. Meanwhile, we're going to tell the kiddies that we're right. God, sure, the science doesn't agree with us, but the God of the Bible didn't create us. We're going to prove this. We just need some more time. And as parents, we need to take very seriously. Sure, your elementary school teacher probably doesn't have a nefarious intention. Some of them do, though. Some of them actually do. Some don't. But at the top, from the AAUP that we read, where they're getting their source information from, the humanists, they do have a nefarious agenda. So not every person can homeschool. Homeschooling is not right for everybody. But parents, you put your kid in school because it's the thing that we do. You trust them to raise your children. They are going to embed deep in their mind, in the wet cement that is their consciousness at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, these ideas of materialism. And then you make them go to university because they got to get a good job. And now they're introduced to sexual temptation and then the higher level humanism that's going to be introduced at higher education. And they're going to have to make a choice. Do I believe in the Bible or do I believe in science? And unfortunately, the science that we are taught is not trustworthy, and it didn't come from a place of legitimate introspection and trying to figure out the nature of this reality. It came from a place of them trying to find data to support their worldview that it wasn't your God, our God. That's what it is.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll end with this. It makes me, I go back to this quote all the time because it just rings true. Is Vodi Bakum talking about public schools, and he says, don't be surprised when you send your kids to Caesar and they come back as Romans. And it hits hard every time I hear it, every time I think of it, I'm like, I mean, it's 100% true. If you're listening or watching, get your kid out of public school, homeschool or private school run by a local church or something, but definitely not the government indoctrination system.
Right, which historically it is. Horace Mann adopted the Prussian, which was before Germany, system of compulsory education to make more loyal citizens who were good at industry because the Industrial Revolution
make good little workers. And
And they said this, Rockefeller, obviously, who was involved in the General Education Board, his assistant, Frederick Gates, said, in our perfect world, the humans are perfectly docile to our molding hands. This was more about the Industrial Revolution and how you convince people to leave their farms and go to work for minimum wage in a steel plant. But if you look at Rockefeller, his fruit was terrible. There was the mining incident in Colorado where he wiped out all of the miners. What was that called? The Ludlow Massacre. He has an altar to Prometheus in his Rockefeller Center, a golden statue to Prometheus, which Prometheus is Lucifer. Bad fruit. So again, same thing. From materialism from disobeying the God of the Bible specifically. And look, can you homeschool your children? Maybe not. You might not be able to afford not to. And here's the last thing I'll say is automation is here. It's coming and it's here. AI is going to take the vast majority of jobs. The kind of job that you're going to send your kid to university to get It
Yeah.
won't be a job that will be done by humans.
Nope.
White collar jobs are going to be done by robots or by computers for sure. I don't mean to sound like a Luddite here. You teaching them your family business, you teaching them a trade,
Yep.
linesmen, welders, plumbers. It's gonna be
Right.
hard for the robots to do these kind of things. When you send them to university and they now have a $150,000 debt and they've been indoctrinated into materialism and they don't have a job to go to, you didn't do your best deal, you didn't do your due diligence or the best service to your children as a parent. And we need to break from that thinking. The idea that I'm a good parent, I made my kid go to college.
Right.
That's
Right.
As a Christian, that shouldn't be your priority. Because again, Jesus wasn't a materialist. Show me a scripture where Jesus said, good parents give their child a higher education under these people at the AAUP. It's not in there, I assure you.
Yeah.
Okay, rant over.
Oh man, no, it's awesome. Well, dude, it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you are crazy busy. I know you're always making your own videos and you're doing this full time. And I'm not there yet, and who knows if I ever will be. But God willing, that'd be super cool. But again, dude, thanks so much. Where can everybody who hears this or watches it, where can they find you?
Good luck.
Yeah.
So first thing, the harvest is great and the workers are few. We need you out here, brother. So may God bless your ministry. If it's his will, may he open the doors and you be able to fill your niche in the church, because we need help out here. We're getting boat raced. You can find me on TikTok. It doesn't really matter. We've got 300,000 followers, and whatever. If you want to follow what we're doing on TikTok, to see the debates, to see the short form content, and you're on TikTok, it's Voice of Reasons Official. Voice of Reasons Official with an S at the end. You could type in VOR Luke, but really you should be able to find me with Voice of Reasons. And if you do find me on TikTok, it's a good idea to subscribe and look for the live shows, because you get to see the street fight that I'm in 3 nights a week, debating with the atheists and the scientists. Here on YouTube, I'm Voice of Reasons as well. Or VOR. Look up VOR or VOR Luke. Very hard to find me. Google is not like, oh yeah, we love what he's doing. We love his work.
Yeah.
That's not where Google's at. Yeah. So you can obviously, it'd be nice if you subscribed. I only have the bandwidth to really work on one platform or the other. You mentioned that earlier. And the focus right now, as long as TikTok is up, is TikTok. It's the most reach. It's the most opportunities to reach the atheists. And it's the best application. There's a lot of apologists here on YouTube, but we're really focused on there as kind of a premier apologist. So TikTok is where we're doing the work, but do subscribe on YouTube, because if TikTok gets shut down or God changes the assignment, we'll make more content here. But there is a lot of my rambling. If you liked this on my YouTube channel, I cover the flood, evidence for a young earth, some of the stuff we covered tonight, why we descended from Noah's grandsons. That's a good video. So there's a lot of resources in there. A lot of my research is here on YouTube, but that's where you can find me. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, brothers and sisters watching, listening, just remember to be able to go share your faith, give a reason for the hope that is in you, and to always do it with love and respect. So thanks for watching, and thank you for listening.